We had 3 championships early in the 90s. It was a remarkable group of guys, and we went through with 11 of those 12 guys on the team for all 3 of those championships. And then Michael retired. We had a game year in which we won 57 games. We were in competition with the league, and Michael came back the next season. We couldn't do what we wanted to do, was win a championship, but he dedicated himself to coming back. And the team was built around the idea that now we were coming back with that kind of a score and that kind of an attitude. And we had a remarkable year. Okay, we had a great season, remarkable season, set a record for wins. But if we don't win, it's all for naught. It's just a bunch of victories over a course of a year. And so we had to go out and prove it. And the year that was a remarkable year. We rolled over a lot of teams in the playoffs and ended up against Seattle Supersonics, who had a lot of momentum that year, and a tough team, a very talented team, and that we won in 6 games. And we won that on our home court. The second year we came back and we had a successful year. We won a lot of games, 68 that season. And we had to be without Dennis Rodman a little bit that year because of it. He got suspended for 14 games. It turned out to be a fun reunion when he came back. And we went up against the Utah Jazz, which was a very tough team, very talented team also with Stockton and Malone. And the following year we came back and we had a lot of issues, and those issues were all brought up in this video. Scottie Pippen was unhappy with his contract. He also had a broken foot, broken toe. He had to sit out the first 2 months of the season, and we had to rely on a less talented team because we weren't as deep, but we still won a lot of games. Tony Kukoc stepped in and played remarkably, as did Dennis Rodman. So this was a year that was kind of like patching it together to win 3 in a row. And the final year we tied with Utah for the best record, but because they had won both the games against us, they had home court advantage. And so we had to play uphill against them on the road to win. And we won that last game in a remarkable way, with Michael hitting a memory-winning jump shot at the last seconds of the game to win the ball game. And we went back to Chicago and celebrated because we knew it was the last time we were going to be together as a team, as a unit. And we had ourselves a great time together, enjoying that aspect of what we had done. He was still a junior at New Mexico. I liked his game, I liked his size, I liked the fact that he was a really good passer, that he was a teammate, and vowed that I'd keep my eye on this guy as he went through his last year of college and became a draftee in the NBA draft. Watching his initial rookie season, he was drafted by the Minnesota Timberwolves. Talented young team, not a whole lot of discipline or order. He had, a so-so role, but he played the game. Mildly athletic terms was fine. He could get up and down the court. He wasn't didn't elevate a lot. He was understood he had some foot issues, and we watched him through his rookie season with the idea in mind that Shaquille O'Neal had just come into the NBA a couple years earlier, and at 320 pounds, he was just crushing people and knocking them back in the lane to shoot a little 6-foot jump hook. And we were trying to compete with him at that time. Luc was a a guy that showed no fear, played the game physically enough, and we wanted to hold Shaq back so that he couldn't get close to the basket. He was very adept at what he needed to do to be part of the team. He was a pass-first guy, which was important. We have a highly integrated passing system. He was able to be fluid and move around, which is important for that role. He'd play opposite post. A lot of our big centers were shot blockers. He could take them up to the high post and shoot jump shots, which he was good at. He was a very good free throw shooter, and he fit in quite well. He understood. Yeah, it was his bulk more than anything else, his size. He's a big guy. I mean, he's not just tall, but we had tall players. The three-headed monsters were tall, but they didn't have the girth and the factor of non-intimidation. That's what I liked about Luc. He wasn't intimidated. He took the body blows and kept playing. Well, the system that we used, which has a moniker, the triangle system, really said passing is the way to penetrate the defense. Now it's a lot of teams are just doing it by dribbling, by penetration through a screen roll. We were doing a lot of it by passing. And so our center or our post, closest person to the basket, was a pivotal person in our game. And Luc provided that. He also provided a different role for us as a passer from the high post. So he had a real solid role for us. He had games that were significantly important for us. He had games where, he played a part, not a primary role. There's a certain thing about NBA players. The stars can compete, 4 out of 5 nights. They're really good 4 out of 5 nights. The good players, they're going to have nights 3 out of 5 times where they're playing really well. A couple nights they might have, off nights. Superstars are good most every night. The guys that can play every single night. And in the arduous schedule that we have in the NBA, travel, 4 games in 5 nights at that time. Now it's a little different. It was a real hard go for players, and you appreciated the players that could come out and have the energy to play high level every night. A lot of players don't have that. You have to understand that as a coach, and that's one of the reasons why we have 12 players on the team, is so that you can find somebody else to go do that job. I thought Luc was the guy that's a solid NBA player. He's going to give you a performance 3 out of 4, 3 out of 5 nights. Luc was able to kind of be the interesting, humorous guy on the team. One of hosting people, bringing people over.
Hey guys.
Having a Barbie, just opening up his house. That was all part of the ambiance that Luc provided to the team. Michael had been through a really hard time. He'd lost his father. At the crux of that season, he decided not to play and left basketball. And so for his standpoint, security became a big issue. We were, with security people for him, at least 2, sometimes 3. So Michael kind of isolated himself most of the time. He wasn't a guy that went out to dinner because it wasn't possible, unless he had a private room. And, so the limitation of that became kind of estranged as far as that kind of camaraderie off the court. But Luc had plenty of guys to hang out with. Steve Kerr, who's, a successful coach now with the Golden State Warriors. Judd Bushler, friend of his, and multiple other guys that used to go out and have dinner and enjoy themselves. Luc always had a barbecue. He always had a Barbie in the backyard and had people over. So there was a real strong community that built around that. Michael wasn't totally included in it because of his isolation, but everybody else was invited. One of the things I did with Luc, I had a sports psychologist work with Luc, and he came back with the information that I had to use with Luc, and it was this. You can't tell Luc to do something. You can't say, Luc, do this, because he's going to be resistant against commands. He doesn't like to hear people order him to do something. That's one of his things that he leans back against. You have to tell him, Luke, you can do this. Tell yourself, that you can go to your left shoulder and shoot your right-handed hook. And, that became one of the methods that I used to talk to Luc about maybe scoring, being more aggressive, a different type of coaching technique. So that was an interesting aspect about Luc. On the other hand, one of our other players who Luc was close with, Scottie Pippen, had an issue about getting down on himself. And so Luc was the guy that went over and touched Scottie on the shoulder, because when Scottie received a human touch, he relaxed. In other words, he missed a couple free throws, he'd get angry with himself, and then he'd miss a couple more because of it. But Luc was kind of like his partner in this kind of endeavor to go calm him down. Just give him a little squeeze on the shoulder and tell him, yeah, all right, you're going to be fine. And it'll relax it. So those guys were tighter teammates than Michael. Michael was a kind of a person unto himself, an island on his own, even though he's a leader and energy-wise led the team. Scottie Pippen was a vocal leader and very big supporter of Luc's. He had to do it his way. I mean, that's who he was. That's the part of the character of what he developed. Michael came up through a organization that hadn't made the playoffs. He was drafted third among 20-some draft picks at that time. So that tells you where the team was that he was drafted by. It's a barometer of the fact that they were very low in the standings. And there was no way he was going to be on a losing team. And his initial years, if you watch The Last Dance, the first sequence of The Last Dance talks about that mentality of the group of guys he was thrown into as a rookie, just coming out of college. And he developed this attitude of a team that was wary, went into arenas maybe timid, and he wanted none of that. He didn't want any part of that. He wanted to be aggressive. He wanted to play without fear, and that was one of the mottos that he had. There are many times in the early segment of our career and my coaching with the Bulls when the locker room might have been disturbed when I came in at halftime to talk to the team. A couple of chairs might have been tipped over, and maybe the blackboard might have had a large splotch on it from maybe a soda can hitting it. So I knew Michael was calling it out with his teammates, saying, you guys are playing scared. You got to go out there and play full out. We're not going to win if you don't. So there was that part of Michael that the coach had to let loose a little bit, and yet it drove the team. It made them have to play harder than they might have played individually on their own. Michael was very competitive, and he was very much willing to put things on the line to be as competitive as he was. There was no second was not good enough. It just wasn't for him. Well, they were the grunt guys. They were the guys that were doing all the garbage work, which was set a pick, make a block, take a blow, knock somebody down if they were coming to the basket to dunk on top of the team. And Dennis was a drill partner with Luc. We played Karl Malone. Karl Malone was a terrific basketball player. I think maybe he was second all-time scorer in the NBA for a number of years. And he was physically intimidating on top of it, 6'9", 245, 50 pounds, maybe more. And he intimidated people. Luc had to guard him in the finals. The 2 years that we were in the finals against Utah Jazz, that was Luc's job. We knew that Luc could do it for 24 to 28 minutes a game. He had to take the blows, he had to play that defense. And then Dennis would come in and play the speed game, alternating between it, but he couldn't hold him off physically. And so he had to play their center, which was Ostertag, which was a big 7-foot guy, which he could do ably. But then he had to tag team with Luc and then take on Malone or take on Sean Kemp or other players that Luc was willing to guard that were quicker, strong, more physical than Dennis could withstand for a 40-minute game or 48-minute game. So that's how they tag teamed together. So you couldn't ever call anything close to Dennis Rodman. They might have gone out and hung out at a bar, but when Dennis went to a bar, all bets were off. You know, he really wasn't he really wasn't a person that partied, but when he did party, it was all out. I mean, it could be 24-hour party. That's where we had to really watch Dennis closely, is because it didn't stop at closing time. He wasn't always a leader scorer, but he could be second in scoring, or he could be, double-digit figure that night. But he was part of it, and I think one of the things that was curious for people or viewers in Australia was the fact that there wasn't a whole lot of Luc Longley in The Last Dance. There's a lot of Michael Jordan, there's a lot of Scottie Pippen, and a lot of Dennis Rodman, and some Steve Kerr, people that are, kind of known, but that's 25 years ago. And so that's the thing that happens in distance. It eliminates some people that were also important or figured out very positively in what we were doing. So yeah, I'm glad that you have taken the opportunity to give a little shout out to Luc and what his role was. The NBA asked me if I would agree to having a television producer, a camera guy, and a sound man travel with the team and be part of the team for that season, because they anticipated what might happen. I had reached a negotiation with the Chicago Bulls management, even though there was a strong desire to move forward with the coaching staff and for myself to gracefully retire. And the owner wanted to continue and flew up to Montana, and we agreed to a contract to do one more year. The general manager, Jerry Krause, who had some negative things said about him in the documentary, was a talented personnel man. He was good at scouting, good at putting together teams. Brought me into the office and said, okay, we're going to go one more year, but I don't care if you win 82 games. This is the last year you're going to be coaching this team. So, we had structured contracts as an organization, so a lot of people were at the end of their contracts. Luc, Steve Kerr, Judd Bushler, Scottie Pippen, Ron Harper. I can't remember how many other guys were last year of their contract with the team. So I named that year The Last Dance. It was our last chance to play together and to go to this dance. And it was about playing for each other, not playing against opponents or whatever. It's about how high a standard can we have for ourselves and play together. How can they have a storyline that includes, everybody that's involved in this team? It's just, producers can't do that. It's just not part of it. It's like Hoosiers, like the film Hoosiers. How many people could actually stand out on the basketball team in this drama? Yeah, you could kind of see for 2 or 3 of them, but that's the way it is. That's how stories get told. But some of it's manufactured, some of it's, exaggerated, and that's the way it goes. I mean, that's the way things are done in television, and making it kind of a drama. I think it's difficult for him to get it back going again, his career, after being signed by Phoenix and moving to the desert and, a whole new life, leaving behind, a place that they lived and enjoyed in suburbs of Chicago. And then subsequently going through that season and then ending up going to New York. And in New York just having really a physical breakdown and not being able to, function as an NBA player at that level. And I think that was a difficult time for Luc because it didn't end well. You'd like to end on an up note, and, when physically you basically have to leave the game because of your physical disability, it leaves a hollow feeling in you. It's always hard to leave something that's, like that, activity, camaraderie, competition, things that you can measure yourself up against. So those are really hard, and retiring from professional sports is a very difficult thing to do. I'm very happy to see Luc, get a job as an assistant and, as a person that was experienced in what he could do, and having some variety of good coaches over the course of his career apply that to a game in which, he had, I don't know if he ever had a real love affair with basketball when he's a player, but maybe as he's getting older now, he's kind of got a love affair with the game.